Ladies and gentlemen, 5.1, review on polynomials. We have a 4-question warm-up, just all terminology, no pun intended, of your vocabulary for section 5.1. The first question says, what is a term? And a term is an expression, not a happy expression, sad expression, but an expression, a mathematical expression, made up or consisting of, made up of the product, which for those of you who don't know, I'll highlight it in yellow. Product just means multiplication. So an expression made up of the product of numbers or variables. Variables, those are your letters that represent numbers, or both. So your definition for a term is an expression made up of the product of numbers or variables, or both. And when we think about examples of that, if I said the basic one would be 2x. Well, 2x is a term because it is actually means 2 multiplied by x. So the multiplication of a number, in this case a coefficient, I'll highlight it in green, right? Your coefficient and your variable x. So it is the product of a number and a variable. If I think about another one, let's say x squared, if my marker will work here, x squared. That is a term because it is actually the product of x multiplied by x, or x times x. If I say negative 3xy squared, it is also one term because it's made up of the number negative 3 multiplied by x multiplied by y multiplied by y. So all three of those examples, both 2x, negative 3xy, and x squared, are all called terms, okay? So those are just their basic definition for a term is an expression made up of the product, multiplication, of numbers and or variables and or both, okay? If we look at our second question says, what is a monomial? And a monomial is interesting because a monomial is actually a term. It's the same thing as a term. It's a monomial is a one-term expression, which is weird because one term we just said over here, a term is just an expression made up of one term as well. So it's really a one-term expression is called a monomial. So mono, a monocle, if you think of Mr. Peanut, he wears that little piece of glass in his eye, which is called a monocle. Monocle means one, so instead of having two glasses, he just needs one eye. A one-term expression. Examples of these are the exact same things we did for terms. So we could say 2x is an expression, a monomial, or we could say negative 3xy squared is a one-term expression, or we could say x squared. We can also say things like constants, so like negative 3 or positive 6. Those are just numbers, but we would call those in algebra, we call those constants, but they're also examples of monomials, one terms, okay? Now we really see the difference when we look at this next one, which is called a binomial. A binomial, bicycle, right? A bicycle is a form of transportation with two wheels. So when we think about a binomial, it is an expression, a mathematical expression, made up of, or consisting of, made up of two terms. All right, so if we think about that now, if we go back to our terms, let's use that 2x again. So 2x, as one term, we're going to connect it, and I'll put a comma here, connected by addition signs or subtraction signs. So 2x is our one monomial, and if I connect it with a plus 3, we have now created a binomial. Or if I go, what's the other one? Negative 3xy squared minus 4, that is also, or I can actually, let's make it more complex. Let's make it more 4x. That is a binomial. We have one term here, we have one term here, and we're connecting them with an addition sign. So that would be called a binomial. If we look at the next one, we have one term here, we have one term here, and we're connecting it with a subtraction sign. That is also a binomial. We can also say x squared minus 2, or plus 2, it doesn't matter, we'll say plus 2. This is one term, two term, connected with an addition sign. And the last one I'm going to show you is I'm going to put the constant first, the complex one, 3 minus x. If my marker will work. Is my marker going to work here? Huh, my marker stopped working. So 3 minus x, we have 3 is one term, x is another. and we're connected with a subtraction sign. So those are examples of what we call binomial or two-term expressions. And our last thing says, what is a polynomial? Well, poly uh, is poly pocket, but that's a different poly altogether. Polynomial means more than one, so it's an expression. An expression, by definition, a polynomial is an expression made up of more than one term. So the only one it's not, so since one term is a monomial, it could be a binomial, a trinomial, which is three terms. We didn't talk about that, but you get the idea. Or more than three terms, more than three terms. Those are what polynomials are. It just means more than anything but a monomial is a polynomial. And examples could be, we can give you a simple one of 1 plus x plus y. There's an interesting one, three terms. We could do a common one would be an x, like a 2x squared, we'll say. A minus 3x and a plus 1 is a common trinomial. But let's put another one here, plus y. We'll make it four terms this time. So this one is technically one term, two term. This is technically a trinomial, but since it's more than one term, we can also call it a polynomial. This one is made up of one term, two terms, three terms, four terms. So therefore, it would be also a polynomial.